Good evening, black people and all allies fighting for black liberation, black prosperity, and black joy. I'm Charles Blow, and welcome to Prime. After Thursday's arraignment of Donald Trump's company and his chief financial officer for tax fraud, New York authorities now have their first indictment in a 2-year-long and ongoing investigation of the former president's business dealings. And while Trump and his lawyers may be downplaying the charges, they are serious, particularly for Trump's CFO, Allen Weisselberg. I got a chance to sit down with someone who knew Weisselberg's family fairly intimately for 14 years, and that's Weisselberg's former daughter-in-law, Jennifer. And she made some major new claims about the case that you haven't heard anywhere else. Take a listen. Hello, Ms. Weisselberg. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So first thing first, could you give our viewers a sense of your personal knowledge of the crimes that the Trump Organization and Allen Weisselberg were charged with yesterday?
In 2017, during my divorce, I began to discover the lack of compensation being denoted on the taxes. It was missing, not indicated incorrectly. And so my knowledge of the crimes was that I actually figured them out in 2017 and started to fight for the tax evasion and the tax fraud that I saw going on. So my personal knowledge is that I've been working on it for the past 4 or 5 years, and I believe and know that it's true at this point. With investigators, I've been sharing those documents that had that evidence on it. Were the private school payments of children going to school being paid off, paid by the Trump Organization? Were those your children? Yes, they were.
Okay. And so you said that there's documentation. Were you able to provide prosecutors with documentation of the alleged crimes?
Yes, I did.
Can you explain to us what that included?
Absolutely. The documentation came through depositions. In Barry's own words, he discussed how the Trump Organization owned it was a corporate apartment at 100 Central Park South, the one that we're now discussing. He discussed on January 8th of 2012 how Donald Trump said that he would pay for my daughter's tuition and write that check in lieu of a raise instead of compensating him on his W-2. So depositions, statements of net worth.
That is spelled out in testimony, or that is in writing?
It's a deposition, so I guess it's a testimony inside a divorce, a financial testimony. Correct?
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Testimony in the divorce process.
Okay. Got you. So you have said that you would be willing to testify before the grand jury. Have you been asked to testify, or have you testified already?
I'm not able to say at this time if I've walked through the grand jury panel. I've been meeting with the DA's office as we continue to look at more compensation, but also to discuss charges on Donald himself, more on the organization, the Woolman rank, and more executives. I've been prepped to be a witness for the trial, and in terms of the specifics and what they're going to need from me, the documents now are the witnesses that were put through with Jeff McConney to get the charges yesterday.
Let me back up a little bit to something that you just said. You said you were still working with prosecutors on further charges related to Donald Trump himself. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
So that is currently being discussed. You are currently in negotiations with prosecutors and cooperating with them in hopes of being able to charge the former president of the United States with a crime?
It's not my hope to charge or to hurt anyone. I have 7 boxes.
But is that what they're trying? Is that what they're trying to do? Is that their aim? Is that the direction they're going in?
Oh, they're going in justice. They're going in justice. They're going in the direction of justice. In terms of particulars, whatever they find is going. I mean, listen. I think if Alan Weisselberg walks through the documents that Carrie Dunn was able to get in terms of all of the Trump org financials, including how the Woman Ring cash was either, was properly indicated or not, they'll find the evidence they need. They need Alan to walk him through those documents. And it's not the goal to get anyone in particular. They're looking for justice. But it is his company, and looks like he was trying to save on taxes. It's all about tax strategies and benefits, making money.
What do you think the chances are that Alan Weisselberg will begin to cooperate with prosecutors? He has indicated through his attorneys that he is not going to do that.
I think yesterday changed everything.
You do? Why do you think that?
Yes. Yes. So they're saying it started in 2005. What the charges were yesterday. That's when he moved into that apartment at Trump Place. That's when he started to not pay rent, to be compensated in an apartment. That's the year that it started, 2005. And supposedly he didn't pay any state taxes at all because he was indicating he didn't even live in New York. He lived in Florida. That's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just what we know at this point. I think that that's enough to, he looked scared yesterday. And we haven't gotten to the charges yet on his children.
So is it your understanding that more charges could be coming for Alan and that the prosecutors are looking at filing charges against his children as well?
The only thing that I know is that what he was indicted for yesterday is just part of what we've what tax fraud and tax evasion there is. It's only part of what I think they could charge him for. So there could be more coming. So I think he might flip at this point.
How wide do you think, based on your knowledge, how wide do you think this scheme goes in terms of employees of the Trump organization?
I think it goes through all the top executives. I think the scheme started, if you look back in history, and New York Times has reported it prior, that this started with Fred. This is just something they've been carrying on forever. This scheme to save taxes, I guess my documents link to the fact that Donald and the organization was probably taking massive deductions on compensation inside the Trump payroll corp. How bad is the scheme? I'm sorry, was that what the question was? I apologize.
Yeah, how wide ranging do you think it is in terms of how many people in the Trump organization may be involved in something like this?
Well, the Trump organization isn't that big, but it likely includes his children. It likely includes Matt Calamari, Deborah Stilio, who's Jeff McConney's assistant, another accountant within the company. So there's only about 10 or 12, but it looks like they could be compensating other employees in cash. They'll do anything to avoid putting it on tax returns and having to pay taxes on it. They just don't want to pay taxes. Yeah, they just want to make money.
I have one last question for you. How do you respond to people who question your motives of coming out against your ex-husband's family and his employer?
I appreciate that question. I'm not motivated at all, except for the fact that they have done things to me that are so unjust. I'm not a person that I don't get anything out of hurting anybody. I prefer to just walk away from this family like I did in 2019 after the divorce. I was much happier. This is just who I am. If something is unjust and it's not right, I'm gonna bring it to light. I want to be a role model for my children and a role model for women to say that you can be smart, you can be brave, you can be capable, and you can fight. You can fight with your knowledge.
Ms. Weisselberg, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And we will keep in touch, and hopefully we'll have you back soon.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank Ms. Weisselberg once again for her time this afternoon. And I want to let you know that we have reached out to the Manhattan DA's office for comment on the claims that Ms. Weisselberg made during that interview, but we have yet to hear back. We're going to continue to follow this story, but right now we want to talk more about what Mr. Weisselberg had to say in that interview. And to do that, we're going to bring in Nick Akerman, a former Watergate lawyer. Mr. Ackerman, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me again.
I want to get your response off the top to the content of that interview and the claims that Ms. Weisselberg made.
Well, it's clear that she has special knowledge on certain items that were in that indictment. For example, she mentioned the apartment that's on Riverside Boulevard that Alan Weisselberg has been living in, even though he claims was not at the time a citizen of New York City. She obviously would have firsthand knowledge from having visited him there with her husband. She would know that he lived there. She would know that he was a resident of New York. So there are a number of things that she knows about the gifts and items that were provided to her, the payments for the kids going to school. She would have firsthand knowledge on it. But I think what she doesn't have firsthand knowledge on, and that's important because the only way this can be admissible against Donald Trump is for her to be able to testify as to what Donald Trump said about these matters. That would be the most significant thing that she could do. And I really didn't hear anything there that said to me that she had specific conversations with Donald Trump about how this scheme was set up, how they used a double set of books at the Trump Organization, how individuals actually did this. Now, I could be totally wrong. Maybe Donald Trump came over one night to their house. Maybe they had conversations, but I'd be really surprised if that happened. Again, she's not telling us what she said.
What do you make of her assessment of claiming that she knows that there is intent in the DA's office to move forward with charges of the former president, which I think is, a fascinating claim if true. But how likely would she know the intent of the DA's office?
I think all she can do is glean what she gets from the interviews that she's attended. Obviously, they're asking her about everything she knows about Donald Trump, everything she knows about Alan Weisselberg. All of these things are being discussed with her. I mean, it is clear, and it's almost common sense, that we know that the DA's office is going after Donald Trump. I mean, there can't be any question. We all know that the Trump Organization is Donald Trump. We know that he runs the show, that he's the guy in charge, and that it's almost inconceivable that this scheme with a double set of books occurred without the acceptance and knowledge of Donald Trump. I mean, he had to have approved it. But it's a lot more to be able to go the next step and say that you can prove that Donald Trump knew all this.
Mr. Ackerman, we have less than a minute here. I want to just jump in and ask this one question, though. She would not tell us whether or not she's been before the grand jury, but she says she's being prepped to be a witness at the actual trial. How likely is it that she would not have gone to the grand jury, testified to the grand jury first, so that they would know what she has to say and be prepared for trial, being prepared for trial? Or do we just supposed to take from that knowledge that she has been before that grand jury?
Oh, I think she's clearly been before the grand jury. In New York State, in order to make it, you can actually challenge an indictment if you don't have firsthand knowledge. Witnesses with firsthand knowledge testify in the grand jury. So clearly she would have been an easy witness to have in the grand jury. She could testify, as I said before, to the fact that Ellen Weisselberg was a citizen, lived in New York during the period of time that was relevant here in that apartment in question. There's a number of other items that she can testify to on firsthand knowledge. What she can't testify to, I believe, is being able to put knowledge and intent on Donald Trump, because I don't believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I really don't believe that she can testify directly against Donald Trump.
Nick Akerman, always a pleasure, sir. Have a great weekend this weekend.
You too. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. More Prime after